great to be with you here, Grace, to talk a bit about the incredible EFG London Jazz Festival.
Yes.
It's such an incredible time of the year, every single year, as it dawns on us, and there's all this incredible music that we get to see across so many cool venues in London. Could you explain a little bit about the roots of the EFG London Jazz Festival?
Despite London being such a central cultural hub and mecca, there wasn't a jazz festival to support the scene and to bring international artists over. The festival's 32nd year this year. It's important for the world's view on the London jazz scene, but also the international jazz scene. And we invite UK players to play with international jazz artists on stages at the festival every year.
Yeah, I definitely see that. And when you look at all the different people that are playing and the beautiful way that the sounds and the generations interweave, it really does feel like such a special spectacle of music. How do you approach the programming and ensure that it's exciting and broad and deep? Because it's always so impressive.
We're so lucky, there's so many amazing emerging artists doing their thing, and there's a space for everyone in the programme. It's a festival for music discovery, but it's also a festival to celebrate the global jazz icons that have been around for decades. We have a lot of collaborations that are really central to the festival's ethos. It's paying homage to the history, but also bringing this new element and new creation to the music. So you've got Charles Tolliver, who is a part of the original group for Members Don't Get Weary. But then we've invited Tony Kofi, who's a big player in the London scene, and he's pulled together an amazing big band featuring some UK heavyweights like Jean Toussaint, Dennis Baptiste.
That will be amazing. And of course also the London Symphony Orchestra playing alongside Cassie Kenoshi's Seed Ensemble. I think just that moment of referencing classical music alongside jazz is constantly so important, because Max Roach, he studied traditional classical music, so did Duke Ellington, so did John Coltrane, and I think we can often separate those worlds, but often the relationship between classical music and jazz is way closer than a lot of us actually think. So it will be really cool to see Cassie Kenoshi play alongside them. Her understanding, I think, will connect the dots in quite an interesting way. One of the things this year is the incredible programming around South African music.
It's 30 years of democracy in South Africa, so as a big celebration of musicians across the festivals. They've got a really exciting scene. It's very, very diverse, very avant-garde.
And when you look at the role of jazz historically, South Africa has been such an important nation, showing us that music is an expression of such resistance and resilience. You look at the suffering that's happening in the world right now. I think it's so important that we can be reminded of music as a tool to speak out and to bring people together.
Exactly. I mean, jazz is so political, and it's hard to separate that from the genre because it always involves people's lived experiences, and that's something that South African jazz has at its core.
The world needs that now more than ever before. And I guess in the last decade or so, we've seen a shift towards young people getting quite enthralled by jazz. And the London Jazz Festivals really seem to capture that appetite and that thirst in quite a beautiful way.
It's really intergenerational now. I feel like jazz is always changing, and it's now like a very young genre. You know, you've got influences from genres like grime and hip hop and indie alternative music, and everyone's kind of coming together to celebrate what jazz has become. That's what's really beautiful about how the landscape is changing.
It's a really fascinating time. We've seen in the UK and of course in London this incredibly exciting and unpredictable and energetic jazz scene that I kind of grew up on. It was often those informal spaces that allowed those young jazz musicians to play with each other with such freedom and come together, invent their own styles. And I think that's what London needs now more than ever before, is spaces that existed for the older musicians. Those young musicians need that freedom to enter those spaces and without pressure play alongside each other.
You know, so much community. I think that's why the London and the UK jazz scene has really grown in the last 10 years. It's not just because of the festivals and the events, it's because of the community organisations working with the festivals, the artists working with each other, providing opportunities for young musicians to come through.
EFG London Jazz Festival, in your different ways, make sure that that is a priority to ensure that jazz remains accessible, which some could argue historically it hasn't.
It's really important that there's no barriers. There's no barriers for people to play music, but also barriers for people to come and enjoy music and art. So having a lot of free programme is really central to the festival every year, which means that everyone can enjoy the culture, enjoy the music, enjoy the art. You can discover so much at the festival. It doesn't matter what you're into, there's going to be something. There's 380 shows across the whole city. It's a proper citywide takeover, a hotspot for music and music fans, no matter what you're into, and there's going to be something special for someone to discover.
It's important that it's not just for the jazz purists and the traditional heads, but
100%,
all the sounds that bleed into it can definitely inspire the non-jazz heads and actually convert the unconverted into the beautiful world of old and new jazz music. I think this is a really beautiful opportunity for the city to come together and the generations to unite.
Just have fun.
Big ups EFG London Jazz Festival.